We're all going to feel it. We're going to see small immigrant-owned businesses disappearing. They've also removed the CHNV parole, which were people who were invited to come into this country. It could be one slight mistake. My mistake was the initial lawyer that I had hired was the wrong lawyer.
We've seen a lot of high-profile cases about due process where migrants have been avoided their due process rights. Can you kind of go into why this is so crucial? Obviously, not just even for migrants, but why all Americans should be worried about things like this.
When I came into the United States in 2001. I came in from Haiti and I applied for asylum. My initial asylum visit with the immigration officer, I was denied. And it's, thank God to due process, that it was possible for me to go in front of an immigration judge with my lawyer and argue my case. And I was then granted asylum. So due process is very important. A lot of folks who are in limbo in the immigration system they deserve due process because it could be one slight mistake. My mistake was the initial lawyer that I had hired was the wrong lawyer. People are being picked up. They're talking about criminals. A lot of people are being picked up for basic traffic infractions. And someone could have, the reason why there are immigration laws and there are processes in America's immigration system is because someone may have an order of deportation, but the law provides opportunities to remove this order of deportation and actually give them a status.
I totally agree. It's trying to get their foot in the door, and
Yeah.
then when the door's open, who knows where they'll go next. I want to ask you about temporary protected status. You said you were from Haiti. Actually, people, notably, obviously, Haitians had their temporary protected status removed from Trump, or at least to some degree. A lot of the conditions in Haiti, however, that they were given TPS for haven't changed. So I'm curious if you could speak to, and obviously it's more, I think Venezuela was on the list as well. There's multiple countries. Could you speak to how dangerous it is to preemptively remove the TPS from countries where in a lot of cases the situations haven't changed?
So their official argument that came out said that the presence of Haitians in the United States was against the interests of the country. Now, I don't know what danger we represent for the United States as Haitians, right? But that was their argument. They have also, tried to cancel TPS for Nicaragua and Honduras and Sudan and Salvador and all of these countries. There's been arguments that in Nepal, and recently there was a court order. There was a judge that said that it felt like the language in the cancellation of the TPS was actually very discriminatory. If the country has not changed, if the conditions in those countries have not changed, then the time just has not come. We're not saying that the TPS is not temporary. We're just saying that since the country still meets the country conditions to justify the extension, then just go by the law. The law says these are the qualifications. So just observe the law and give the status. But we saw it in 2017. They were on a campaign to eliminate TPS, and they're at it again. We expected it to happen.
Those longtime viewers of the channel, I have a couple interviews with the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti. So people on my channel know the situation on the ground is dire. It hasn't changed. If anything, a lot of it's getting worse, at least in the instability and such. I do want to jump over to talking about undocumented migrants and a pathway to citizenship. I want to end with two questions. The first one is kind of on the communities themselves and the effects that this kind of battle, the back and forth of mass deportation, and all of that can kind of create for these communities where, as we spoke to, many of these ICE raids, I think it's 70% of those in ICE detention have no criminal background. So it's not like violent criminals are really being picked up. So what does it do to these communities where families are being torn apart? A lot of these migrants work jobs that local employers rely on them for. What does it do to the communities when these mass deportations and raids happen?
It completely destabilizes communities. At the immigrant level, first we're seeing a growing number of folks who are afraid to leave their homes. They've been taking kids out of school. I understand that registration in public school has gone down a lot. At least it was noted noticeable in Broward and Miami-Dade County. For example, Miami-Dade County, for us, over 60% of the population affirms that they're born outside of the United States. So imagine people have family members. There's been more than just the TPS status that they tried to remove. They've also removed the CHNV parole, which were people who were invited to come into this country. You have a lot of employers who don't even know anymore if their employee is employable, right? Because people are confused. One document one day, one notice one day, another notice the next day, constantly having to wonder, is that person actually still able to work? Is a huge question. And now employers are more and more afraid to hire someone unless they can actually see a work permit, because then, you know, they're concerned about the penalties. So eventually we're going to start seeing the impact on the economy. We're going to start seeing the impact on our families, even non-immigrant families. You have to remember, in the state of Florida, most of the caregivers, most of the caretakers for our elderlies are immigrants. And these are people who are on temporary status. We're all going to feel it. We're going to see small immigrant-owned businesses disappearing.
Yeah, I agree. And my favorite fact to always cite is that billionaires evade over $100 billion in taxes every year, and undocumented migrants pay over $100 billion in taxes every year. So
There
they
you go.
benefit us in a lot of ways that a lot of people don't think of. And for my last question, you actually touched on a lot of it with that one, is for those people who they support Trump in the mass deportation or whatever the line might be, you know, they didn't come here properly or whatever it might be, what would your message be to them as to why a pathway to citizenship is the right decision, not even just morally, but even more, like, as you spoke to, just pragmatically and rationally, economically, just in any way you could?
This idea that those millions and millions of people, 11, 12, 15 million people, came the wrong way, it's a lie. It's not true, right? A lot of people came in through the CBP1. They also made people believe that people who used the CBP1 came in the wrong way. It was not, because it was a system established by the US government. People who came in on the CHNV, they also came in through a system that was made available by the US government. The fact that people came in on the CBP1, went for check-ins, and kept going for check-ins. If somebody came in the wrong way, what they're calling the right or wrong way, and that person kept going to check in, it's because they knew they hadn't done anything wrong. You have folks who are here. You have folks who are familiar with the country. You have folks who have been here for decades, and they are contributors in this society. They are friends of your children in school. They are, you know, they're here. The best option for the United States economically is to give them a pathway to citizenship. Any pathway to citizenship, actually what it's going to do, because every immigration process requires vetting. There is a process behind them. So if they are criminals or if there are any issues with them, let the immigration system find out if there are any issues with them. But understand that these are people who have given their lives to this country already, who've contributed to the economy, who've contributed to the culture of this country, and so many of them do not have a future if they go back to their home country.